Let's open up with the breaking news. This, look, I'm a be honest with you. This is exciting for me as a good human. No one was more pissed and deterred than I was when Tango Gameworks was closed.
Mhm.
I came out, I gave the business, I did not make excuses. I know there's a lot of people like, well, Boom, they're in Japan and all of their anchors are here. Maybe he doesn't listen. It's a Japanese studio that you own. They have incredible IP in Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't know whether you folks played it or not, but I did. Loved every freaking second of it and was hoping for a sequel. The Evil Within, Part 1, not so much for me. Part 2, holy crap, it was amazing. Expected 3 to be announced. Well, that didn't happen. And what could you say? What could you say, folks, about Hi-Fi Rush? Well, I'm going to be honest. If you had a negative opinion about it because maybe it's not your genre, I'm not going to fight you on it, right? That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But I'm going to push back on you. It was an amazing game that gave us memorable characters, memorable artwork, a world that I wanted to revisit again, unbelievable music, rhythm-based combat that we haven't seen. I honestly don't remember the last time we've seen anything quite like it. And it launched literally perfect. Like no bugs, no 17 and a half gig download for day one patches. It just worked, and it worked freaking well. Well, thanks to Jez Corden of Windows Central, which of course I'm going to read his story published at Windows Central. He goes on to say Crafton is picking up former Xbox team Tango Gameworks as well as Hi-Fi Rush, and that has been revealed. Obviously, he says revealed today, but that was revealed yesterday. Now, in one of my favorite sections of the publication for Windows Central, what you need to know. Well, let me break that down for you. The bullet points go as such. A few months ago, Microsoft announced plans to close Xbox Studio Tango Gameworks, its only Japanese-based team, as part of a round of cost-cutting measures. Tango Gameworks was known for titles like Ghostwire Tokyo and The Evil Within, as well as the recent breakout hit Hi-Fi Rush. Crafton Incorporated publishes mega franchises like Battle Royales, Players Unknown Battlegrounds, and has expanded to other regions and exploring new game franchises as of late, which is great to know because now, PUBG, I'm sure it's making money for them, but they want to expand on it because there's so many, gas games out there. They're going to try and stretch their wings. This is a story that should get you, should make you happy as a human being. It goes on to say, Crafton Incorporated announced today that it has acquired Tango Gameworks as well as Hi-Fi Rush, saving the team from closure. And the final piece of it says, Crafton Incorporated has confirmed that it intends to support Tango in the future development of Hi-Fi Rush's IP. Now, this is exciting. Steele, I'm going to go to you first on this, brother.
Mhm.
Okay, so you, like Pong, like myself, like Mav, like Fuzzy, like many people in our circle, our gaming circle of podcasters and content creators that we hang out with on a regular basis, we're pretty upset with the closure of the studio for a multitude of reasons. One, this is by far, and I think what's going to be remembered for 2024 isn't its greatest games, isn't the best value for your buck with Xbox Game Pass, isn't the return of Astrobot with, one of my favorite platformers from when the PS5 launched. That's getting a release in September, or the Nintendo titles that are coming out. Some are re-releases and some are fresh new ones. It's not going to be remembered by the games of 2024. How 2024, at least in my personal opinion, is going to be remembered is by how many layoffs and studio closures this gaming industry has had, and what we've had to see many of our favorite developers endure. And I think we should never forget that, because these are real people with real life problems now that they're out of work. And I do want to kind of make sure that we don't forget that, which is why I will continue to discuss it. But specifically, going back to Tango Gameworks, they're not closing. HiFi Rush is coming back. This is big news. Let's get your hot take, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with this from Games Press. Just talking about the agreement. They're saying that as part of this agreement, Crafton intends to collaborate with Xbox and ZeniMax to ensure a smooth transition and maintain continuity at Tango Gameworks, allowing the talented team to continue developing HiFi Rush IP and explore future projects. Crafton intends to support the Tango Gameworks team to continue its commitment to innovation and delivering fresh and exciting experiences for fans. This, to me, speaks to more so what the current strategy of Microsoft seemingly is. And that is just teaming up with folks, teaming up with their partners, finding ways to cut deals in different ways. This to me signifies that there definitely was a stronger bond for this team to still be able to remain together for the time that they are. They weren't completely disbanded or anything. And just a willingness of both sides to even consider working together. I don't know whether them going to Crafton is a good thing or a bad thing. Crafton, again, the creators, the ones behind PUBG, Terra, and there's some other games that they throw in there as well, can be quite money hungry when it comes to their IP or when it comes to their games that they support. So with this being not that type of game for them, I do think that one thing that Crafton does have is enough money to at least support the development of a HiFi Rush 2 potentially through the earnings that they're getting through their other games, right? And I think that that's an initiative that some of these other publishers are starting to look at as well. You see it in the mobile space especially, and I think that's the biggest door knocker that anybody can look to is Hoyo. They're a mobile. They make mobile games. They transitioned into consoles through PlayStation, right? And there's kind of starting to blur the lines between what is a mobile game and what is a console game, or what are just action adventure games, gotcha games. What style of game? What do? There's too much of a blend going on now. That we're starting to see. So maybe this could be part of that expansion. I know from that same article that this acquisition for them or this partnership for them was a part of their global expansion. So it's like, okay, so what does that mean? Now, Crafton isn't one to necessarily keep games to themselves either. So I know some people were like, oh, watch Hi-Fi Rush 2 not go to Xbox. And it's like, I don't think that Tango has a bad relationship with Xbox just because of what happened, right? Now, is it unfortunate? Is it something that should have happened? Probably not. But if there wasn't any other way, them even saying, considering that we're still working with Xbox, Microsoft to make this transition, and even that could lead to a further partnership, as I mentioned in the beginning. So it's just like, sometimes there are some bridges that maybe have to be burnt to be rebuilt, because the foundation that they were using before, the struts or whatever, weren't what was needed to support that team, that studio, or whatever vision that they had. So, and they're also saying that because of what has happened, there's not going to be any changes in development to any of the other games. Now, this is something that is also interesting to me because, again, Tango has the one game, right? And their other games I don't know when we're going to end up getting them. And if we end up getting Hi-Fi Rush 2 before you got an Evo Within 3 or whatever the case may be, then it's just like, okay, is it the internal side of the studio that may be having some issues? And is this going to be an opportunity for them to look internally, or has this entire time, right? That separation from Microsoft been an opportunity for them to look internally and say, all right, what is our goals? What is our vision? What are we trying to do? And because all these things are done through meetings and business meetings and sitting down and having conversations. So it's like, what did Tango convince them with that was going to be a good deal for them, for Crafton, and it had to be a lot. It had to be a good bit on the table. So I am extremely excited and hyped that they didn't have to completely disband. Again, I do think Tango has some skill underneath them, but I guess it's going to be more dependent now on when they get that HiFi Rush 2 out, right? Because they didn't buy them for HiFi Rush 1. They bought them for something else. And I think it's definitely going to be some of that game development expertise, but also I think the next game may be on that 2-year cycle, which would be really good for them, especially if the game sells well. The one thing that I will say about this is that hasn't been consistent is that people is extremely supportive of this team when they got caught off. I don't see as many people talking about it now that they've been brought back on. And everybody marking Xbox as the evil corporation in this entire scenario. It's just really weird to me because this doesn't solidify necessarily anything either for them. It kind of puts them and my eyes a little bit more in limbo just because of what we've seen from Crafton. But I mean, I don't know. We could be wrong. Things could change, and hopefully that this is exactly what they were looking for. So.
I mean, great points all around. Look, at the end of the day, you're onto something. Did they acquire this team for simply HiFi Rush 2? I don't know. And that's a fantastic point that I actually didn't consider, because if there's one thing that we know about Crafton Incorporated is they want to make money. I don't know if HiFi Rush 2 is going to be quote unquote a moneymaker. So Fuzzy, where I think the rubber hits the road here is I looked at some numbers this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And you had over 3 million people play HiFi Rush on Xbox, which is a lot of people. Now, should it have been 5 million or 10 million? I think so, because the game is phenomenal. But I went and looked at the PlayStation 5 sales, and the best that I could find was 529,000 copies purchased. A pinch. Over 500,000. The game was super inexpensive because it was $30, but if you had PlayStation Plus, you got it for 25 and change. So there was a discount. And obviously only half, and I'm not being facetious, the game is phenomenal. It is a 10 out of a 10 game, but like what we saw what happened with the Destiny DLC, it was reviewed great, it just wasn't purchased, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, Fuzzy Belvedere, if like Steele brought up a great point, whether or not Tango themselves were purchased for something else, because they did go out and purchase the IP as well for HiFi Rush. The other IPs, meaning that the two that are left over, Evil Within 2 and Ghostwire, those remained, at least for now, according to the article, in Xbox's possession. It was only Tango. It was only HiFi Rush. I know there's been a lot of talk in the community, like Steele also said, is there some bad blood where this game does not release on Xbox? Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest with you. Based on the PlayStation 5 numbers of HiFi Rush 1, I don't think they can afford to do that. So this is going to release on PC, on PS whatever, on Xbox whatever. It's going to be a multi-plat. I know that there's going to be some, was there bad blood? Maybe there is. Maybe John Johannes is like, yeah, F Xbox. I don't think, I don't know. I doubt it because he's a businessman, but there might be some hard feelings there. They closed their studio. That sucks. But thankfully, thanks to this acquisition, there's still going to be a studio. I think it's a big piece of news. Let's get your hot take on it, man.
Well, I'd like to start off by saying I was one of those that was adamant about trying to have Microsoft retain the talent, John Johannes in particular, and the talent that was still left at the studio. I know there was back and forth information about how talent has left. The two key people that left, yes, they brought some people with them, but there were still a significant amount of people still at the studio. The other lady started her studio. Haven't heard much about her game as of late. And with the original founder of the studio, which he also ran into problems with Tango meaning how Bethesda had to purchase them or acquire them to kind of help him out before for mismanagement of funds or whatever the case may be. He's starting another new studio, which if you look at the track record, I would say not many people left to go to his new studio for the fact of how his original one wound up. So to dispel all of the back and forth about talent leaving, there was still significant talent there, which they also had an unannounced game that they were trying to pitch outside of a Hi-Fi Rush 2. I don't know if people remember, there was supposed to be an anime style RPG that they were to work on. I think that's the one, since it wasn't named, Microsoft can't really claim that that's their IP. So that same studio is probably going to continue work on that or fleshed out that idea and probably bring it to Crafton as their own IP at this point. Having Ghostwire Tokyo and Evil Within remain with Microsoft, that's great. We'll see if there is a partnership down the road where they hire Tango Gameworks to make future copies, which I think in Microsoft's interest as far as financial, it's probably better to do that than to retain whatever expense. Although operating a studio in Japan is a heck of a lot cheaper than operating one in Washington State or even operating one in California. Don't believe the hype about, oh, well, they're all the way across the world. Yeah. Washington State and even California is more expensive to operate.
Yes.
So all of that being said, I think this is the best opportunity, much like we saw with Toys for Bob, where instead of closing a studio, they have a second lifeline, let's say, to still continue to be creative, make games. Hopefully they land better as far as a wider audience. Not saying that Hi-Fi 2 Rush or Hi-Fi Rush, the original, didn't have that audience. 3 million is nothing to sneeze at, especially these days when, pillar fighter games barely get 1 and 2 million sold copies. So all of that being said, now with the Switch 2 being right around the corner, Crafton, pitching things on mobile devices, which will be handheld PCs or handheld consoles, as well as mobile devices. I think that gives that game the best opportunity for like the Hi-Fi Rush 2 to succeed or exceed, the 3 million that it did on Xbox next go around. It also gives them time to also market some of those characters from that IP, which a lot of us were like, hey, why aren't there plushies? Why isn't there an anime, for things for like Hi-Fi Rush? And now we'll see how that turns out if Crafton chooses to invest in those endeavors. But I think this is the best possibility outcome or best possible outcome. We'll see how it winds up in the long run. Crafton can make games as far as successful, and they can also make duds. So it's the possibilities are endless. But I think this is a worthwhile IP to continue to invest in, expand if possible, and that IP that they were working on originally before things kind of fell apart with Microsoft. I think that's what Crafton will hold tight to the vest, and that will be their own IP at this point whenever that anime RPG gets released, or if it even gets released. But I think that's why they're probably, in Crafton's eyes, a worthwhile purchase, not just for Hi-Fi Rush. But it's always great to try and retain talent. We'll get into the whole Bungie thing where that didn't quite work out. But in this case, I think this is the best possible outcome. Kudos to Crafton. Hopefully Microsoft may not be kicking themselves in the end. I mean, I don't think they will, but this, from an optic standpoint, probably didn't go over very well with some of the smaller studios in Japan that they were trying to, not acquire, but partner with as far as for deals. Like anytime you're coming to a region that's as tight knit as like the Japanese developers are, having it where you close one that you owned. I mean, the sale might help things, but I'm pretty sure there's some other developers that might not be as willing to work with Microsoft now. But this may, alleviate some of that. Hopefully it alleviates some of that. But we'll see how things go. I don't think Crafton's going to, or even Tango Gameworks would want to consider, skipping Xbox. I think especially like with the numbers of how well it did on Xbox, even though those may not have been full on sales, it may have been players accessing it through Game Pass. I still think that platform is worthwhile, even if other developers don't see the value in it. I think they'll continue to support Xbox as a platform for their game releases, but it's better news than what it was, let's say 2 or 3 months ago when they were going to close the studio completely and everybody kind of, resubmit their resumes elsewhere. So this is a positive step forward for all parties involved.